This lesson is about how to put in the gusseted heel. You can see that on this sock I've already started the heel gusset with the flap. This sock is made from a lace pattern that's very open and air conditioning, and the sock is both cotton and wool and will absorb fluid very well. You'll be able to sweat in it a lot. So Josh will be taking these for times when he thinks he's going to be in the heat. But I wanted to show you how to do it. Just like the other sock, we're going to do a very loose bind off with an extra stitch. That's the original. I put in a little extra stitch, go to the next, and pop both of these over the top of that stitch. The purpose of the extra stitch being added is to make it really loose so it doesn't bind against the foot. You have to finish off this heel like this heel flap, because if you don't and you rub a hole in the heel flap, it'll back right up into the pattern we worked so hard to establish, which will be very, very hard to re-establish and re-knit, and would make could make the sock useless. So I bind off the heel flap on all sides so that it can be re-knitted if necessary in the center of the sock. As you can see, I've bound off half the sock, and at this point, unlike the sock I showed you before, we're going to make one round on the other half and rejoin the heel on the other side. This sock is 68 in the round, so what I'm going to do is take one fewer stitches on this half. I should be doing 34, but I'll work with 33. Just as you have seen me do in other times, we go and pick up all our stitches through the bind off row. I'm using my fancy Tunisian knitting needle here to do the lifting. And when I get enough of them onto a knitting needle like this, I just go ahead and cast it on to the knitting needle we'll be using. And then we go back to casting on through the loops. So I was using a 2.75 needle, you can see that, but for the purposes of binding off, I'm not going to do a super loose bind off, but I'm going to use a larger needle, a 3.25, as you can see. So I'm going to bind off the end of this heel. That way, if the heel by itself ever needs to be replaced, it can be replaced in the center of the sock. This is a fairly loose bind off, but it is just one stitch over another. It's not two stitches over another to make it a super loose bind off. And as you can see, this leaves us with a heel that is done in the stretchy knit purl stitch. And the next step, we'll show you how to make a gusset.